Hello, my friends. Let's keep practicing expressing the conditional. Today, let's practice the type 2 conditional. I like to call this conditional the dream conditional. We will learn more in a moment, but first, we need to review the verb tenses used in the type 2 conditional. The verb tenses here are a little bit more confusing and complicated than the 0 and type 1 conditional. The first reason is because this conditional uses the grammar of the simple past. It uses the grammar, but the meaning is not in the past. So this conditional uses this grammar of the simple past, but the meaning is more in the present. So this is confusing because you see the past or you hear the past, so you think, oh, it's the past. But with this conditional, it is not. The second part of this conditional is in the present conditional or in the present continuous conditional verb tense. This means that your sentence will most likely contain the word would. Next, my friends, let's look at the meaning of the type 2 conditional. In life, we have many improbable or impossible events that we can imagine. And typically, these events will not happen. They are very improbable or impossible. But with this conditional, the meaning is if one very improbable event did happen, another event would occur as a result. This is confusing because typically it means that both parts of my sentence will not happen. One event is very improbable, and the other event is a result of that improbable event. So we are dreaming because both parts of the sentence will probably not happen. Let's look at an example. If I won the lottery, I would buy a new house for my parents. My friends, it is very improbable that I win the lottery. I will probably never win the lottery. So I know that this event is very improbable, but I am imagining if I won the lottery. I am using this conditional to say, if it did happen, if with some miracle I did win the lottery, this is what I would do. I would buy a new house for my parents. But in reality, I will probably not win the lottery, so I will not buy a house for my parents. But if I did, this is what I would do. Let's look a little bit more at the use of this conditional. The time we use this in is usually the present. It is usually something we are imagining right now. Again, it's important to note, my friends, this conditional does not take place in the past. For situations, we use this conditional for only hypothetical situations. These are hypothetical situations that are happening here. They are not real situations right now and probably will never be real situations. Some tips for using this conditional. This conditional is used for stating wishes or dreams, but not to discuss current reality or real situations. If we are discussing a real situation, we probably will not use the type 2 conditional. You will often hear this type of conditional in conversation or party games like Would You Rather or Truth or Dare. We will talk about Would You Rather in a moment. And finally, my friends, also note that in conditional sentences, all pronouns use were instead of was. When I talk about pronouns, I mean words like I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. In the normal simple past, we use was and were. I was a student. You were a teacher. He was a doctor. She was a lawyer. So you hear me using was and were with a normal simple past sentence. However, for some reason, in a conditional sentence, we will only use were. If I were, if you were, if he were, if she were. This is what is correct in grammar. But you know, my friends, many native speakers will still use was in a conditional sentence. This is the difference between English in a book and the correct grammar and how native speakers actually use the language in everyday life. So if you hear someone say, if I was you, instead of if I were you, it's acceptable in conversation. But if you are taking an official English exam, you need to remember to say, if I were. And maybe you are thinking, Joanna, why? Why do I need to use if I were? And my friends, English is crazy. I know. English is crazy. Okay, let's look a little bit more at the structure of a type 2 conditional sentence. Like I said, the first part will be with if. That part will be in the simple past. The second part of my sentence after the comma will be in the present conditional or present continuous conditional. Like I told you before, this part of the sentence will probably contain would. So let's look at an example with my cat. Cats do not have wings. It is almost impossible for a cat to have wings. But if I want to imagine if my cat had wings, I can use the type 2 conditional. If my cat had wings, she would fly to the top of the tree. Again, my friends, remember, if my cat had wings is an impossible situation because cats cannot have wings. That means the result that I imagine, she would fly to the top of the tree, will probably also not happen. But I am dreaming of a hypothetical situation. If my cat had wings. And again, my friends, you see the word had, so you think past. But because of the word if, this sentence is not in the past with the meaning of the sentence. It's a dream I'm having right now, but we are using the grammar of the simple past to express my feelings. We sometimes can also call this the unreal conditional because this situation is not true now and probably never can be true. It is only a hypothetical, which happens here. Let's look at a few more examples of using the type 2 conditional. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? My friends, we all have jobs, we have school, we have children, we maybe don't have money. So right now, it's improbable that you can choose to travel anywhere in the world. But if you are dreaming, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? I'd go to Egypt. I'd is the contraction for I would. So I would go to Egypt. I'd go to Egypt. Or if you could get anything for your birthday, what would you want? So if you had the opportunity to choose any gift from anywhere in the world, what would you want for a gift? And you can answer this with I'd want. I'd want new jewelry. I'd want to travel around the world. I'd want more dogs. Probably I'd want more dogs. Finally, my friends, remember with the conditional, it's possible to switch the two parts of the sentence. So in this case, I will start with the present conditional. I would travel the world. Then I have if with the simple past. So if I had $1 million. So it's correct to also say I would travel the world if I had $1 million. It's also correct to say if I had $1 million, I would travel the world. So again, I can switch them. If you have if in the middle, a comma is not necessary. But if you put the part with if in the front, a comma is necessary. So now let's look at some more examples with the would you rather game. Sometimes at parties or on road trips or just in conversation, people create crazy situations for you to choose between. So they will say something like, if you had to choose, would you rather be able to see into the future or go back and change the past? Of course, my friends, these are impossible situations. We cannot choose between these two gifts, but these are situations to imagine the outcome. So if you had to choose, my friends, what do you think? Would you rather be able to see into the future or go back and change the past? Here is another example. If you had to choose, would you rather be able to fly or be invisible? So if you had to choose between these two superpowers in this impossible situation, what would you rather have? The ability to fly or the ability to be invisible? Okay, my friends, remember, practice, practice. I want you to write 3 sentences for me using the type 2 conditional. And just to refresh your memory, we use if plus the simple past and then the present conditional. So, for example, you will start your sentence with something like, if I had, or if I could. And then the next part of the sentence would be, I would, blah, blah, blah. So, my friends, practice, practice, and never give up.